Both Google and Facebook are just as confused as all the rest of us are with what to do with AI. Those roadmaps and those plans that used to just work all the time have really been flipped on their head. The access to data, the access to information is just unbelievable right now. So when it comes to advertising, when it comes to branding yourself, you really got to take that into account. I think that the importance level of it has gone up about tenfold in the last literally 6 months. I mean, we're talking about 3 and 6 month intervals here where everything's changing so fast.
Our topic that's going to guide us today is Google and Facebook ads in the AI era. You and I were nerding out already about how the landscape has shifted dramatically in just the last year, 2 years. Everybody knows AI has done that, but a lot of people, at least in my experience, who are kind of aware but not really aware, or maybe totally unaware, or they know about it but they have no clue what to do, is typically the small business owner. Typically home services, service-based businesses. Really, the backbone of the American economy are all these businesses, and so many of them struggle with their marketing. And now with AI kind of upending everything in terms of how people search for you, how people find you, we have a lot to unpack here. So we're going to go all in and nerd out today. But before we jump in on our topic, Ryan, give us a little bit of your origin story, and then we're going to run from there, man.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, yeah, I started in print advertising way back when. I was actually in print advertising sales and I did that for a few years before jumping over to the digital side. And after leaving that print ad sales role, I went to a company. We were one of the first retargeting companies. So, if you're not familiar with retargeting, those are the ads that follow you everywhere you go. And we were one of the first companies that did that. And right after I started working at that company, we got purchased by eBay, which is just great timing for me because we were able to watch that company grow, work from startup to working at the time, Fortune 500, eBay. Our clients were the biggest of the big, right? The GNCs, the Sports Authorities, the Toys R Us's, Bath and Body Works, Ralph Lauren, K-State. I mean, you name any retailer, and we were building really cool digital programs for those guys. And did that for a while. eBay then sold us back to a startup. So I went from startup to Fortune 500 to startup. And along the way, I learned a lot about how people were running their marketing organizations. And whether it was a small business or one of these big retailers I just mentioned, everybody kind of needed one extra person on their marketing team. And so what they do is they go hire an agency and they would be unaware that the agency was charging them for all kinds of overheads. And that's what a lot of business owners get today, right? So entrepreneurs and small businesses, they go hire an agency to solve one or two problems, and that agency charges them way too much because there's all these other things that the agency has to carry. There's the big agency finance business. So you're paying for a user experience group or a big design group. You don't really need that. So we built Tobie Group really to be flexible and to still be strategic because small businesses still need that support, even if it's not in their best interest to be paying for a giant agency to help them handle that.
Spot on. So what types of clients do you work with? Are they mostly like home services, service-based? Have you niched down? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, we've got maybe two sides to the business. We've got a marketing strategy side where we're helping businesses kind of more in that fractional CMO role, as a supplemental, chief marketing officer, supplemental marketing director. We're really helping guide strategy. And we're doing that for businesses that work in workforce and economic development, some of those those government entities, but then a lot of other smaller agencies or consultancies. We also have, kind of a squad of clients that are in service-based businesses. So whether it's, HVAC rental organizations or primary care physicians or lawyers, we're helping those businesses drive local advertising as well as local SEO.
All right. So let's kind of talk about the services that you do offer. How big is your team, first of all?
We've got 3 full-time folks on my team, and we've got about 15 to 20 contractors. And that's part of this model and why the model works for a lot of small businesses, because we're able to fire up the right resources for the right projects. We do a lot of retainer-based work for our clients, but again, those retainers are very specific to the channel that we're helping out with. And sometimes I think as small business owners, one of the things that small businesses should be asking their agencies or their marketing consultants about is, hey, what else am I not tapping into here that maybe I'm paying for? What are the things that are on the list that we're either not using or not utilizing, or how do we make sure that we're focused on the right things? So my team's got quite a few contractors, and the reason why is because we want to stay flexible for our clients.
Yeah, it's the best model. It's the same at my agency. It's the top dogs lead the strategy, and then we have the contractors that help on the fulfillment side. And
Absolutely.
it's the best and most flexible way to give also, the most flexibility and I guess the fairest pricing to clients as well.
Absolutely.
So what types of services do you all do? Is it literally anything and everything that you and your strategy team has designed for the company, or is it very prescriptive? What does it look like?
Well, both of those things, right? So we'll handle just about everything somebody needs yeah, as they bring us on and hire us. But it is also prescriptive. So at the beginning of each month, we're sitting down with the client and we're trying to map out exactly what needs to be accomplished in, a given month. Now, I will say with AI, we're going to get into this a little bit, but all of this has been jumbled because those roadmaps and those plans that used to just work all the time have really been flipped on their head. And I think that, some of the people listening to this probably are feeling that, the stuff that you might have done, 6 months, a year ago is not resulting in the same performance as it might be now. And a lot of that can be attributed to AI. So we're being very prescriptive right now, and we're having to go back to the drawing board and help clients kind of adapt as AI comes to fruition here.
Yeah, man. So let's hit it. Let's talk about how AI has disrupted. We're going to talk specifically about Google and Facebook ads, but maybe we start
Yeah.
holistically and talk about how AI has disrupted how the general consumer shops for businesses such as your clients.
I had a chance to play with an AI web browser this week. I don't know. Have you done this at all? The ChatGPT Atlas or Perplexity as a comment. Have you messed with these
Yeah.
at all?
Yeah, I've messed with them. I'm still getting used to them.
It's truly unbelievable. So when you download, Perplexity, which is an AI platform, you download their AI browser comment. One of the intros of how you can use it is essentially doing all this research to purchase a bike, right? And so you just ask one question, and all the stuff that used to be manual just winds up right in front of you automatically. And until you see it, I didn't think I really understood it. So, the access to data and the access to information is just unbelievable right now. And we're only, we like to say we're at the dial-up stage of AI. This is like,
Yeah.
and for those of us that remember AOL, getting the AOL CDs. Yeah, yeah. We've got, so I mean, we're at this dial-up stage of AI. And so your customers have access to more information now than they ever had information to. And it's only going to get more so, right? So when it comes to advertising, when it comes to branding yourself, you've really got to take that into account when you're building your marketing programs and plans.
Yeah, and I think this is one of maybe the hardest thing to drive home sometimes with smaller local business owners is the way you searched on Google, the way we've all searched on Google and landed on your ad or landed on your organic result or landed on your profile, that is all completely changing. It is just not going to be that way for much longer. And especially like you said, with Perplexity and the different browsers coming out, the AI browsers coming out, it is totally upending it. And it's one of those things where you almost got to take a hammer to some people and be like, no, it's changing. It is changing. It has already
Yeah.
changed. And if
Yeah.
you don't see around these corners or work with someone who is going to help you see around these corners, life is going to get difficult for you pretty quickly. And even faster than when people didn't adapt to Google and to Facebook and to, the dial-up stages of all the other stuff that are now in the AI stage, if you will.
Yeah.
So
You just mentioned something there, the nature of search, right? So I'm an elder millennial, just not to age myself, but when I look at people on my team that are younger, I look at some of my clients' customers, they're using TikTok to search for information. And what's coming up is a brand video about their service. They're using YouTube to identify information or to learn about the next thing. And again, this is just a major shift. It's not hard to go to the next level there. Is okay, well, what are we doing with our advertising to support this? What are we doing with our branding to support this? Do we have enough video in our advertising? Because, what used to be just a point, hey, I'm going to go search for this one thing is now turning into this scrolling process. If somebody doesn't like that video, they don't like what they're receiving, they're going to move on to the next thing. So there's an element of branding here that just never used to exist, and it's becoming more and more important in advertising.
you hit the nail on the head there because so many for forever local businesses haven't necessarily had to rely on branding if they didn't feel that was their strength or if they had an owner or a crew who maybe didn't want to get in front of the camera, didn't want to display their knowledge. They just wanted to go do their craft and serve customers, which is fine. And it has served billions of businesses for years, and it still does. But if you want to be the upper echelon of your industry, you need to start embracing the idea of branding and, putting yourself out there, like you said, like possibly on a TikTok video or, in ways that you otherwise wouldn't have done. You have to make different efforts to put yourself out there, because not only is that how actual possible customers are searching, it's also how AI is developing your, and ranking your credibility, your trust, and authority, right? If AI can't find much about you, if you've got a crummy website, if you don't have hardly anything out on social, if you aren't running any sort of advertising, or maybe you're just doing Google ads and running them to a crappy website, AI is going to be like, well, these guys aren't trustworthy. They're not credible. I'm not going to send any traffic there. I'm not going to recommend on any of my AI platforms that somebody ought to call this business. So it's just a massive mindset shift that needs to continue to happen. It's starting to, but it needs to be said even louder.
The upside to this is just as powerful as the downside, right? So, I mean, I think we're kind of approaching it, the way we're talking about this has this negative connotation, but the upside of this is, if you are a small business and you're nimble and you're willing to get in front of camera and you're willing to invest in, just explaining what it is that you do and why you do it and why you might be the best fit for that core customer of yours, you're already leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of different businesses that maybe in the past were able just to spend a lot more money, right? Mm-hmm. So there is an upside here, but if you're an entrepreneur or a small business, you've got to recognize what that opportunity looks like, and you got to take advantage of it right now, because again, that window is going to close really quickly, and it won't be long before we're all crowded out again by some of these big brands.
Exactly. And like you said, the cool thing right now is the bar is pretty low for local businesses, because no offense to local businesses and local business owners, it can take a while for the community to wrap its head around the next change, right? Not to say that they're acting in years prior, but that tends to be the case, because you know what? Local business owners are darn busy. They're busy running their day-to-day, keeping the business afloat, keeping their people happy, satisfying their customers. It is really darn difficult to stay on top of the latest technological trends and still successfully run your business while making sure that you're seen around these corners. So
it's hard for us too. I mean, honestly, yeah. Hard. I mean, look, I'm like, if you look at our agency branding, it's nowhere near where I want it. This is like a situation where we tell our clients to go do it. So I think it's like, we got to acknowledge that it is difficult to do this, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that, if you get out there and start really producing some great content and start turning it into ads, you will be light years ahead of where everybody else is at today. So.
Yep. And that's the same with me. We're literally, my partner and I are in the midst of rebranding our business, our agency, and launching a completely new entity with, our personal brands, putting those on fire. And we're doing the same thing that we're doing for and encouraging our clients to do. We're here with you. We're literally doing the same thing for our business because we need to adapt, and we are in that process, and we're helping you build while we build. So you're right, man. It's just every business, regardless, needs to get on there. So let's kind of shift it a little bit more towards our main topic here on Google and Facebook ads. So kind of help us understand how AI is affecting the ad platforms themselves. Does it affect how we produce the ads, write the ads? Let us kick us off with that.
Yeah, look, we're talking about this at the end of 2025. So, tomorrow this could all change. But I think that's what a lot of us have been experiencing as ad managers. So let's first talk about what's changing. But then I want to talk for a second about what doesn't change and just some like really practical things that people can do with their advertising to make sure that, they're putting themselves in the best position, right? So what's changing? Both Google and Facebook are just as confused as all the rest of us are with what to do with AI. Okay. If you're Google and you've been making a lot of money when people click on things, when they search for things, and you've been the only, search engine in town for quite some time, this is a major threat to your business. And, the fact that I'm starting to use Perplexity Comment and using all these regular LLMs to go find information is a major threat if you're Google. And so the first thing to recognize is that Google is trying to infuse different campaign types and ad types, and they're trying to infuse AI into their platforms. So you're probably familiar with, things like Performance Max. Performance Max kind of cuts across all of Google's channels. Okay, so this is a campaign type that they rolled out a couple of years ago. Most ad managers hate it. It's got display and video and all the, email and all these other things kind of built into it. A big part of the reason why they did that is because they recognize that they need to diversify their channels because it can't just be search all the time, all day, every day. And so if you're a business owner and you're looking at this new campaign site, all of a sudden Google is really pushing it. They're trying to get it in your hands. They're trying to get you to use it. They're incentivizing you to use it in a lot of cases, but it is a very different approach than what you've probably been used to, which is just, hey, here's how much I'm willing to pay for this one viewer. Things like visibility, all that stuff has changed pretty dramatically just on the Google platform. Facebook, a little bit similar story, but Facebook is just basically kind of making you use AI. So Mark Zuckerberg came out earlier this year and just told everybody, hey, we know that our AI is better than you ad managers. There's going to come a time where you can't pull any of the levers yourself. Everything's about creative, just create content, load all the content in and just trust us. And so, you've kind of got these two different angles on the two major platforms. Now, the good news is there is some diversification that's starting to happen, especially at the small business level. TikTok, Snapchat, Reddit ads have started to get popular. Reddit's platform is actually getting really solid. So you have got some more choices, but when it comes to Facebook and Google, they're kind of shoving AI in front of you every chance that they can get, and it doesn't work all that great. And that's the big problem, I think, for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, and other agency owners out there, freelance ad people will probably feel the pain here when I say I don't write many Facebook ads anymore. My team handles that, but my gosh, do I hate that platform because it's so buggy, it's so trippy. The AI it's not great, right? Like and I'm going to write the copy anyway. Their AI copy is typically garbage when they recommend it. So for me, I'm like, you know what? If AI is going to come in and they're going to do all of this, as long as it's acceptable, you know what? Take it, because I hate that platform. But
Yeah.
you're right. Like it is still very sloppy right now. It's just, I mean, I presume eventually it's going to get there, but it still needs a lot of hand holding.
The things in that Facebook platform that, anybody who's running ads should be aware of, is there's a lot of suggestions that Facebook gives you. Hey, use these images. Hey, use this copy. Use all. You put music in there, and in a lot of cases, they're making it almost impossible for you to not use those things. And again, to go back to what we were talking about earlier about branding, there's this dichotomy where you've got to make sure that you're on point and on brand with the messaging and the imagery and all those things. But you also kind of want to lean into AI and you want to trust Facebook a little bit. And so I think that that's something that's a challenge that as business owners, we're all going to be facing here is, do we just trust the computers and the machines and let them do their thing? Or do we need to make sure that there's some type of brand standard there that's in place? So it's tricky right now.
Well, and I will say to Facebook's credit, and your mileage may vary on this, but we haven't used detailed targeting in a long time with clients. The open targeting, the algorithms for Facebook, AI powered, I guess, are extremely strong in finding the right people for your ad. But to bring it back to what you said, the most important thing is that your ads are written very, very well and that your creative clearly states what you're trying to do, or who you're trying to reach, I should say. And that's a lot of things I think a lot of ad managers or agency owners maybe haven't grasped yet, is the fact that your copy really matters now, like a lot more than it used to. And your imagery and your videos matter a whole lot more than they used to, because the AI is reading those, deciphering who you are trying to target with this. And basically all you say is, hey, I want to target this radius in this area, this age group, let it run. And it's been like that for going on 2 years now, where Facebook, like we were running ads for it was an excavation company, and they really wanted to build ponds for people that have, 5-acre lots and want to build a pond, their own pond out in the country.
Sure.
And we literally let it run open targeting, just a radius area with certain age group. And they were getting 150 leads a month for people who want them to come dig a pond. Like, it's incredible. That was I think that was about 2 years ago. That was my first foray into let's test the wide open targeting and see what happens. And I was like, holy crap.
What difference have you seen with budget level on the wide open target? Do you feel like there's a budget threshold where that seems to work better?
Yeah, I would say it's the budget. So like basically our recommended minimums have crept up over the years, which is natural. Ad costs go up and down, but they typically continue up on a trajectory as such. For the open targeting, I feel like the CPMs have been a little bit higher, but the results have been better, meaning for most clients, in terms of the results being the leads are slightly higher. I hate saying lead quality, but more qualified leads. Again, this varies widely by industry and by region, and basically,
Yeah.
what you're selling or what your service is, and your trust, your credibility and authority across all mediums. It's not just Facebook anymore where people find you. But I would say the results have gotten better, but the CPMs have gone a little bit higher in our experience.
Yeah.
Not, but
Uh,
like negligibly.
yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And just, to make sure what we're talking about here, you're talking about, removing a lot of the behavioral targeting guardrails and letting
Correct.
Facebook's algorithm kind of determine who best to be in front of, right? So, and that's actually been Facebook's guidance in the last year. Facebook's guidance in the
Mm-hmm.
last year is, don't use all of our behavioral targeting, which we've been telling you to use for the last 10 years,
Right.
but
They're
just
basically
let
like, bro,
us,
hold my beer.
yeah, just let us figure it out. And so I
Yeah.
think, something actionable that somebody could take away from this, you could, like, test that, see if you can remove some of those constraints and see what happens. It does put a lot of pressure on your creating, as you mentioned. And if you're not using video right now, I would say get some videos cut first before you just let the guardrails off. But yeah, I think it's worth a test. We've been split like 50-50 on whether that works or not, just completely removing all the behavioral, filters and everything. And I think that one of the keys here is you've got to be able to spend enough money in a given day.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, basic algorithms, it doesn't do great when you have low spend. So I think for a lot of businesses,
Right.
you're spending, 50, $100 a day, somewhere, around there. A lot of times you're probably not going to start getting benefits of, some of this new guidance by Facebook. That's what we've seen.
And
But
yeah, and that's a great point, is that when the clients that want to spend the minimum or below the minimum, it's like, okay, you can do that, but like your reach, like if you were to spend $15 a day in a local area, you used to
mhm,
be able to reach 1,100, 1,300 eyeballs a day. Now it's 400 to 500. Like
yeah,
you're getting nowhere near what you think you would for the old, $500 a
mhm,
month, which is not, you can't do that. And it's just,
yeah,
you can, but your runway is so extended that it's not worth your money. So that's where, yeah, we're saying, at least 30, 40, $50 minimum per day. And that's where the results are going to be. That's
yep,
just how it is now. You're totally right with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to also think about where you're at in the funnel, right? With those Facebook campaigns. Right now, for my agency, I've got a small retargeting campaign. Okay. And it's literally like $10 a day. We don't get a ton of website traffic. Okay. But I want to make sure that we're following whoever comes to our site with a message. So I'm okay spending $5 or $10 a day. And by the way, I'm also okay putting some of these other layers on top of that to make sure it's the right type of traffic. Okay, so for us, we're trying to be in front of business owners. We're trying to be in front of, in some cases, other agencies, things like that. So I am adding those layers. So somebody has to be to our site and they have to fit a couple of these other categories. And I feel okay about keeping those constraints in place for the type of campaign that I'm running. But I've been very thoughtful about who that audience is. I think a lot of times when clients come to us, they kind of want like just tell me how to run Facebook, right? Without a lot of thought about the audience and where it kind of fits within that sales cycle for yourself. And so to go back to something I said a minute ago, like what are the things that are changing with AI? Audience first, always. You have got to have a good understanding of who your target customer is and who your best customer is. If you don't have that, it's impossible to build the correct creative. It's impossible to have the right message. It's impossible to even know if you're reaching the right person. Like, how do you know if those qualified leads are truly qualified if you don't have a good sense of, what pond is actually profitable for you? Those things are not changing. And unfortunately, I think that that's one of the biggest gaps that our clients and companies that come to us have. So they want to use the tool and they want to leverage AI and they want to do all these things. They haven't done a lot of foundational groundwork on who the best customer is. So we always say, your current customer might not be your best or your ideal customer. So tell us the difference between those two things. If your current customer is somebody who's got a pond that's this big and, your ideal customer is a pond that's way bigger that lives in a way different area, then you're just continuing to repeat the same mistakes and no AI, no algorithm is going to fix that. Right.
Right, exactly. It's just like I recently had a client call and they wanted to start focusing more on 40 to $80,000 remodel jobs as opposed to the, 3 to 6K ones that are, or whatever that number might be currently. And it's like, well, we're talking about a different clientele. That is a totally different avatar. So yeah, I mean, you have to have that hammered out before you throw any sort of money into advertising. Because I see that all too often. We're like, well, we're running Facebook ads and we're doing some Google here, and I'm like, how much are you spending? Well, we're not spending much, but maybe $2,500 a month. And I'm like, and the results, well, they're not great. That's why we're talking to you. I'm like, well, you don't even know who you're trying to sell to. That's the first
Exactly.
problem.
Exactly. And they
Now
don't
you're just lighting
revisit
money on
it.
fire.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of nested in that is not ever revisiting that customer type, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we push our clients to revisit that customer avatar, that ideal persona once a quarter. And if not once a quarter, like once a half, like every 6 months, you should be taking a step back, identifying, hey, is this still the person we're going after? Why is it? And bring other people into the room, right? I mean, this is the stuff that look, everybody's busy. Business owners, you're slammed. You've got so much on your plate right now. Marketing directors, you've got, 18 things you've got launch and all. But just taking a pause, getting 5 or 6 people in the room that really matter to the business, and making sure everybody's on the same page will pay dividends in any of your advertising. Google, Facebook, TikTok, I don't care what it is. You have to identify who that audience is.
So let's talk about AI and Google a little bit. I know we covered Facebook pretty
Sure.
well. What are you seeing, not just as the future of search, we touched on that a little bit, but in terms of AI and how Google is adapting it with their ads platform and how traditional search ads are actually being shown now? Can you kind of give us an overview of what you're seeing with Google and AI and how search has changed in advertising?
Yeah. Google and Facebook both spend a lot of time tuning their algorithm, right? And Google's algorithm is tuned based on a lot of user behavior. What are people clicking on? If you have an ad, somebody clicks on that ad, they get to your landing page. Are they spending time on that landing page? Are they failing right away? Because, Google cares a lot about that user experience. The reason why they're such a powerful search engine and how they came to prominence is because they made that search process that much more enjoyable for people, right? And so I think we can work ourselves backward to understand what we can do as advertisers to help improve our chances with Google, as we move into the AI area. And what that looks like is making sure that your tracking on your website is just absolutely pristine. Okay. So when you launch a Google campaign, you should have Google tag on the site. You should have your Google Analytics set up properly. You need to have your conversion tracking set up properly because all of these things become signals to Google and to Google's AI. Okay. And, we talk to our clients about inputs versus outcomes. Okay. You will not get the outcome you desire if you don't have the proper input. And in the digital advertising world, that input is Google Analytics, it is conversion tracking, it is all this kind of digital plumbing that needs to be on your site in order to work well. And so the campaigns that we see working the best, whether it's Performance Max campaign or this new AI Max campaign, the campaigns that do the best are the ones that have really great tracking in place. So before you go anywhere, make sure you talk to your ad manager, make sure you talk to your team to get that tracking in place. Now, all the different stuff that they're laying on top of that is wild. I mean, I already mentioned the Performance Max. Now they're coming out with this thing called AI Max. So Google's pushing us to use more and more, AI tools and let their algorithm make more determination on, how to bid for people and bid for traffic. Supposedly, again, I've been told different things by our Google reps, but AI Max is going to start appearing in those AI overviews. And so when you Google something, today you're starting to see that above the search results, getting a lot of the information that Google thinks you're looking for. Well, there's no ads in that currently, but AI Max supposedly is going to be the first step in that direction. And so right now we're testing AI Max, we're bringing it to our clients. Again, a lot of this stuff is still really fuzzy. So we're all as an industry trying to figure out the best way to do things because there's kind of what Google says, then there's what we experience, and probably somewhere in the middle is actually where, the reality of performance is.
So the AI Max, is that essentially going to replace what used to be the first result on Google was the sponsored result, the ad? Someone paid for that position. So is that essentially what AI Max is going to be? You're going to get that AI overview, but at the very tippy top, it's going to say, sponsored AI Max, and it's going to be so-and-so company. Or are they going to use the ad and the information from that company as the only AI result? If that makes sense.
Yes. So for the people that are familiar with Google Ads, my guess is that search is going to start looking a lot like, old Google Shopping and some of these other tools that Google's had for us, where your search is kind of tied into more like, I'll think about like product types almost. So if you think about information as products, it's hard to visualize exactly how that's going to look, in the future. But my best guess is that that's what AI Max is trying to lean into a little bit. They tried to do it with Performance Max, but the problem was, they're dumping in all these really crappy channel types, display and video, which those are great for generating awareness, but they're not really great drivers of conversion. And so I think a lot of frustration that people have today is Google tells us just to turn on Performance Max. Well, we wind up with a display advertising campaign that isn't working the same as our search advertising campaign. Again, going back to audience, if you've done your homework, maybe a display works because that audience that you're trying to reach out to, is consuming that medium. And so again, all of this is just putting way more pressure on making sure your tracking is right, making sure your audience is accurate, make sure that brand and the messaging that you're putting forward matches up with what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and we keep coming back to brand, but we have to, because if you're going to be advertised, especially if you're spending, 10, 20K per month or more on Google Ads, you really need to have your other ducks in a row, being your website, your SEO, your credibility signals to Google. They need to be in order. Your brand, having a YouTube channel, hint, hint, Google owns YouTube. So it really helps to just get on video as the owner or representative of a company and just talk to people, express your authority, show them you're the authority, because even if you get 7 views a month on that video, Google sees that.
Yep.
The algorithm, the AI will see that video and be like, these guys are experts. We ought to, give them higher placement, better CPMs on their ads. It all comes together in ways that most people aren't familiar with or don't think about, but it's true, and it does. That's why we kind of keep falling back on brand. Maybe that's the theme of the show today is get your brand in order.
That's going to be the theme of the next 10 years in marketing. I mean, that's kind of what's embedded in all of this. It's spoiler alert here is a lot of the things that service businesses didn't need to think about it as much in the past are becoming much more important today. And this is like your signal. Okay, hey, we can't just run local services ads. The phone's going to keep ringing, but all of a sudden that local services ads, that's worked for you guys for quite some time. It's not going to just include, the 4 or 5 star reviews that you got on your Google business profile anymore. It's going to include all these other things. It's going to have quotes, the founder said, it's going to have images from your job site. It's going to have, times that you were mentioned on, whatever KTLA or whatever it might be. And because the speed of information is just growing so rapidly, Google, again, it wants to provide the user experience that's going to keep people sticky. And so we have to, as advertisers, recognize that. And we have to put some work in all the rest of our channels if we want this to work. I'll give you just one quick example. We work with a HVAC rental organization. And so one of the strategies that we pursue with them is if they want to own during the summer when peak, they want to own that top paid search result. And they want to also own the business result on the right-hand side. And so a lot of their energy, first we're bidding really high to win the appropriate bid on Google PPC, but they've spent a lot of time building their authority by getting reviews, real customer reviews, not just random people, but real customer reviews. And they've probably got quadruple the number of reviews as their next closest competitor. That's been super helpful. And they've been able to kind of own that top and side and kind of block out some of their competition. And so conceptually, you can think, okay, in the last 10 years, it was about reviews. It was about what our customers say. Well, now it's not only what our customers say, but what does everybody else say about us? Is there a PR aspect to this? Is our founder present? Are we doing charitable things for the community that we're advertising in? What are the other signals? Because all of that's going to get pushed into that knowledge graph and all of it's going to get pushed into that ads result. And if we're not doing that work today, your ads just will not be as attractive. That the amount of real estate that all of this information is going to start taking up on that Google results page is substantial. Again, it's not happening today, but I think probably the next year or two really need to, which means you got to do the work right now, right?
Exactly.
You got to start putting in that work.
Well, and that's exactly where I wanted to go as we round out the show here is talk about what can we do to help our listeners, our agency owners, our freelancers out there, people who want to be an agency owner. How do we help them see around the corner for everything we just covered today? And you already said it, PR, doing things that are going to not only build your brand, but put you out in the places, especially as a local business, if that's who we're talking to, is putting yourself in all the reputable places in your community. So I know you have a background in PR as well. So let's kind of talk about real quick the importance of using PR, maybe a few examples of good PR and, where you can be, I don't know, mentioned or, it goes a long way when Google sees that you're mentioned multiple times by the local ABC affiliate, right?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
insert affiliate here. So let's talk about that for a minute. What does that look like
Yeah.
for you and your clients as you're helping them see around these corners?
Yeah, and I studied PR many moons ago when I was still in college. So I do not pretend to be an expert today, but it is something that I'm glad I've got a background in and I'm starting to dust off. And we are telling clients to invest in PR as part of their overall marketing strategy. Local SEO today looks a lot like local PR with it.
Yes, spot on.
Local AI SEO looks a lot like local PR. And that line is really blurring. So a few things that we're doing, right off the bat. So we are encouraging our clients to send press releases out. Just Google like press release tools, fire off a press release once a month. That's one thing. Second thing is there are a number of platforms. They used to be called help a reporter out platforms, but there are reporters that are looking for knowledge and information. So there's a few featured.com, quoted.com. There's one called SOS, which is built by the same guy who built Help a Reporter Out platform. Subscribe to those. They take a lot of time. You've got to respond to questions that these reporters have, but if they like your response, you'll get a quote in those things. And again, it's a very easy thing to do. Just a handful a week, and over time, you'll start to build those out. So that's the second thing. And then for the clients that are a little bit larger, ones that actually have some budget to throw behind this, invest in a PR freelancer, invest in an agency that understands brand, that understands digital PR and understands digital link building and how to, procure guest posts and guest blogs and things like that within your industry. Again, all of this stuff just matters on a level. It was always important for SEO. Okay. But I think that the importance level of it has gone up about tenfold in the last literally 6 months. I mean, we're talking about 3 and 6 months intervals here where everything's changing so fast, but we are telling our clients to invest in a handful of those things. So on the low end, help a reporter out, send a press release each month. On the higher end, bring in a freelancer, bring in an agency to actually support you in those things.
And two things on this, especially since my agency we're into PR as well. First of all, every content publication out there, whether it's a magazine, a radio station, a news channel, a website, insertcityhere.com that just disseminates news and advertising, they all need content. Like you said, you follow the rules, answer their question. They will pick up your press releases. They will pick up the little advertorials you might write. And it's not necessarily that there's going to be a bajillion people who click on them and read them. But one of the most important things is the fact that now you are signaling to Google that, hey, look, Tempe.com picked up the story about us here, or they picked up this press release, right? It's just brutally important to have these things out there in the ether so that you are building your authority with the search engines and with Google. And also, they all need content, right? They're all desperate for this content. So it's not the hardest thing in the world to get some of these things picked up because every outlet needs that content. So yeah, it's vitally important. So that's probably a good place to land the plane here. I know you're a busy man. I got to get you off and running, serving your clients today. But Ryan, this has been awesome. I think we covered a whole lot in a short amount of time. I think everybody's going to find this pretty darn valuable. I know I did. So I want to make sure before I let you go, if anybody listening today, if they want to reach out to you, they want to learn about your agency, if they want to work with you, if you have anything that is helpful to our listeners, please let us know now.
Yeah, I'd say, one of the things we built an ads report card. You can send it at adsreportcard.com. You answer about 20 questions or so, and it'll spit out some really actionable things that you can do to take a look at. And again, spoiler alert, it's a lot about tracking. It's a lot about audience. So if you're scoring low in those areas, then it's probably your first sticks. So yeah, adsreportcard.com. And then on social, we're Tobie Group. TOBIEGROUP.com, and all the socials, Instagram, and find us at Tobie Group.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you again, man. This has been a ton of fun. It's always fun for me to nerd out with fellow marketing guys. So, pleasure having you today. And we wish you nothing but the best moving forward with the Tobie Group.
Thanks so much.